So we walked from our home to the Brooklyn Botanic Gardens and then up to the Queens Botanic Gardens every day this week.
Yeah, we called it Dueling Botanic Gardens.
That's right. And that's the title of this episode. And it was a lot of fun. I enjoyed it. I think we learned a lot. We didn't really hit the peak.
No, we thought we would, and we didn't.
No.
Which I think is, you just can't predict these things. Like, there's a general idea.
Well, we tried because this is supposed to be the week.
Well, yeah, but like it's a sort of a general idea of like, yeah, everything should be blooming like end of March or early April is when it happens, the early spring. But like it's also dependent on all the weather patterns and all just like what the plants are feeling, or, you know, it's so dependent on so many things that can't be perfectly predicted.
Yeah. One thing I would like to know is if all the winter snow we had this year perhaps impacted the timeline.
It's possible, yeah.
We'd need to talk to a professional about that.
I should have asked the guy that I talked to today.
Yeah.
I spoke to a person named Colin from the Queens Botanic Garden, and he was so helpful to explain how some of the plants worked and suggest things for us to see, and talked about, you know, how Queens Botanic Garden does their gardening, and he's a gardener there. So any sort of fact that I bring up from Queens Botanic Garden probably came from him.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about the Queens one first.
Okay.
Why? So the Queens one is, let's see, how do I describe the Queens one? Well, it was formed from the World's Fair, for starters, the earlier one, right?
The first one.
Yeah, the 1939-1940 World's Fair.
Yeah. And there's two big trees. I'm going to look at my notes because I don't want to say something wrong here. There were two blue atlas cedars in the very front when you walk in, right off of Main Street. And those were put there for the World's Fair in 1939.
Right.
And then the Botanic Garden sort of ended up being built in that same area after. So that's like around when they started planning for it. But then it was officially made into a garden just shortly after that.
Yeah. Yeah, and it, according to Colin, who Jesse talked to, his perspective on it was that it's a much more DIY botanic garden than its counterpart in Brooklyn.
Yeah, so there's a couple things that go into that. For one, the Queens has just less gardeners, and each gardener has more acreage that they're in charge of. So each gardener at the Queens Botanic Garden is in charge of 10 acres of the garden. And in charge of means curation of like what it's gonna look like, and then tending to it and maintaining it. I didn't ask if they have, like, if each gardener has a team. I'm not sure exactly how that works out, but I really liked that portion of it, that the gardeners have curation control too, like that there's creative control over what it looks like. And it sounded like each season ends up being slightly different because of, you know, what the gardener is thinking is appropriate for the next season. And but because 10 acres, so the difference at Brooklyn Botanic Garden, each gardener is in charge of 2 acres.
Yeah.
So what that ends up meaning at Queens is that it's just a lot to cover for one person, I think. So there's these areas that are wild forest, which are really nice. It's like, it's not as dense as you might think a forest is, but there's lots of trees, and there's like sort of partially low grass, partially high wild, not super high, but like a couple inches, these like cute little like hairs of grass that stay like little, I don't know if I'm describing it well. It's hard to describe just like with words, but like these like small little like patches that sort of lift up.
Mm-hmm.
Like they look like little grass plants. They were cute. Do you know what I'm talking about? Did you
No.
notice them?
No, I didn't.
Okay, well, I noticed them out in that area. Out there, there's also like a composting area. It looked like some places where they had like a small farm.
Yeah.
I didn't see any animals, but some kind of like farming area. There was some beekeeping. It seemed like really like a lot of community involvement opportunities as well.
Yeah. I want to just continue a little bit of what you were saying about the structure because I found it really interesting. There's 10 acres per gardener at the Queen's Botanic Gardens, but then there's also kind of a director level structure as well, right?
So at the Brooklyn Botanic Garden, there are directors in charge of each area. So like if you go to BBG, there's very clear like designated sections. So there's like the section over near the greenhouses, and then there's like the section where there's like the Japanese garden, and there's the section where there's the cherry blossoms, and it's like very clearly marked. And so I guess each one of those sections has a director, and then under the director are gardeners. And so the director curates what it's going to look like, and then sort of tells the gardeners what to do.
Yeah.
Whereas over at Queen's, it seems like there's not. And I hope I'm getting this right because I'm also, we're playing a game of telephone, literally.
Yeah.
And I don't know anything about this world going into it, so I hope I'm like catching it all right. But it sounds like then at Queen's, there's maybe no director, or maybe there's more of a collaborative effort, and then that's why the gardeners have like creative control as well. So it's just different. So it means that at Queen's, if you're working as a gardener in the same position, title, and like level, at Queen's you're in charge of curating what you're doing and then doing it.
Yeah.
And at Brooklyn you're being given a direction, like given a blueprint for where all the plants are to go and how many and whatnot, and then you just follow that and make it happen.
Yeah, I thought that was really interesting because I didn't really consider how any of that would happen, but it makes sense. I mean, it's just a lot of there's a lot of design that goes into planting all of these things.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
The other thing that I thought was really cool about the Queen's Botanical Garden is that it's really important to them to do everything like naturally and organically. And so they don't use pesticides or chemicals, and which also contributes to sort of the more wild feel because the plants there might be a few more weeds here and there. And the rose bushes, for example, Colin was saying that the past couple of weeks he's been trimming those back, and I asked, what does that do? Like, why do you do that? Apparently rose bushes are really prone to all sorts of like diseases and infections. They're 10,000 years old. The cultivation of roses stretches back that far. It comes from Asia, East Asia in particular, and China mostly. And then because it's something that's been done for so long, the practices of cultivation are pretty well figured out without using chemicals or pesticides. There's like very clear, like if you do this, this will happen. If you do this, this will happen kind of thing. And so one thing that you can do to keep them healthy is that over the winter, a lot of like the diseases that would get into roses sort of like set in, and because they're not blooming, it like grows in one place, I think is what he was saying. And so before it starts to bloom, you can trim back the plant, and it gets back to the point where it's like healthiest, and then the blooms come from that healthy spot.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah.
I wonder if that has anything to do with the fact that rose bushes generally always look kind of brambly.
Oh, maybe.
They always seem kind of nude,
Hmm.
except for where the roses themselves are.
Yeah, that's true.
I don't know.
I don't know either.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean that was interesting to learn about from him. As
Yeah.
far as the space itself, we happen to be going there every day for free, except for the last day because I don't know when it starts, but it ends March 31st. The park is free.
Yeah. I
And
think it was for the whole winter season and then, plus a couple weeks, I guess.
right, yeah. So on April 1st, we paid $6 each to get in, and which was very reasonable.
Yeah.
This is kind of similar to last week in that we spent less time in the area than we might have otherwise because we need to keep walking.
Mm-hmm.
Much like last week with the museums, we just needed to keep walking.
Right.
So
I think with the Botanic Gardens, especially because we were sort of pre-peak bloom, we weren't stopping as much. Like we were enjoying it and looking around, but there wasn't as much like in the museums where like each painting is very clearly framed. With the Botanic Gardens, you're more like in an environment. So we were still probably moving faster through there. But once you've like looped it a couple times, it's like, okay,
Yeah.
time to go.
yeah, so our last day there, the first payday, was comparatively empty
Mm-hmm.
to the other days that we were there. I think the environment would probably be the same, but I'm not 100% certain. It felt very local community oriented. Didn't feel like there was a lot of destination travel
Yeah.
to the area. So because it's near Flushing, there was a high percentage of older Asian adults that were there enjoying the space. A lot of Tai Chi and other movement exercises
Yeah.
happening.
Yeah, I mean, it's a perfect place to do that.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. It was pretty quiet. Even, I mean, you said today was more empty compared to other days, but the other day, at no point did it feel crowded, which its neighbor, Flushing Park, often feels crowded.
Yeah.
So this is like this really nice, quiet space, which,
Yeah.
it makes sense to go and walk and do movement.
Yeah. And Colin was suggesting that he felt there was a very active community participation
Yeah.
in the space.
Yeah. Yeah, he did. He said that a lot of, like, on volunteer days, a lot of people come out, and a lot of people from the neighborhood or the community, surrounding community, are involved and, are there frequently and just involved in general in, like, what's going on and checking in and seeing the plants and learning about the plants and whatnot.
Yeah. And, Jesse started talking about some of the features of the park. We had the 2 trees that were there from the World's
Mm-hmm.
Fair start.
Oh, yeah.
There's also a tree there that is one of a dying breed. I don't know if I can't even really say. Yeah.
He called it extinct.
Yeah.
Which is interesting because obviously we saw it and it's alive. And like when you think of like, you would never call an animal extinct, even if there's only one left in a zoo somewhere.
Yeah.
So it's like interesting to use that terminology, but I trust that that's right.
Yeah.
And it's called the Franklinia altahama.
Yeah.
I don't trust that I'm saying that correctly. It is a tree that was found growing in Georgia by someone named John Bartram, who seems to be like a pretty well-known tree person. I don't know what the correct term for what he,
I don't
what
know
he
if
does.
botanist would be correct in this
Botanist maybe
point.
is correct, yeah, but someone from the past that was really involved in plants, something to do with plants. Anyone of our friends or anyone that doesn't know us that wants to correct me on my terminology, feel free. But so he brought a clipping of this back up north, and the clippings of the tree sort of got passed around. And so there's a handful of places that have one of these trees.
Yeah.
And Queen's Botanic Garden is one of those places.
Yeah. Yeah. And so we tried our best to find what we thought was the tree.
I think we found it.
There are for whatever reason, some of the trees were tagged with what they are, and some of them weren't. And so we found, I mean, our instructions given were, look for the tree that looks dead. Don't worry, it's sleeping.
Yeah, basically. Well, it was, look for the perennial garden. Look across in that area. There's a like really blooming yellow floral tree. And then right across from that is this tree that looks dead. But yes, don't worry, it's just sleeping. I guess it's like, it's still in the winter season, and soon it'll sort of bloom again.
Yeah. So there was one tree that looked dead, and then we looked for the tree online, and it seemed like the tree online was a lot smaller.
Yeah.
So then we looked again and saw another tree that looked dead.
Yeah.
And
it looked like more dead. Well, the first tree that we found that we thought looked dead, we were like, I guess that looks dead, trying.
Yeah, and then we saw this other one, and we were like, that looks dead too. So I'm going to show you the video of what we think it is.
Yeah.
I
should probably send it. Maybe we can send it to Colin and get confirmation too later.
Maybe.
But that'll be after, so whatever. Yeah. Maybe there will be a note. Maybe we'll mention it, or
we'll see. Yeah,
we'll see.
You'll see. Future you knows more than present me.
Right.
So, but yeah, we did a little sleuthing, and this is the best we came up with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think we saw the extinct tree.
Yeah.
But regardless of whether we actually saw the extinct tree or not, maybe we'll go back if it was the wrong tree, maybe we'll go back for the extinct tree. But I just think that's so cool.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad that Queens is repping some extinct trees up there.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so in addition to that, they have this, they have a fragrance path, which was nice to walk through. I could smell a little bit, but not everything.
Yeah.
Jessie can't smell anything for reasons that she doesn't have a sense of smell.
Yeah. I did try.
Yeah.
Nothing got in.
Yeah. And there were flowers there. I mean,
it was pretty. The fragrant path was the most bloomed of the areas.
Yeah, in the Queen's Garden, that's for sure.
There was also one cherry tree in bloom.
Yeah,
in
which we went and checked out.
Or two. There were two.
There was a couple of them there, yeah. And so we got some footage of that. I don't know if we'll be back to the Queen's one anytime soon, just because I don't think it intersects with anything.
Yeah, and it's a little bit, just in general, it's pretty far. Like, it's 9 miles, I think, from our house.
Something like that.
So, which, of course, that's fine for us to walk.
Yeah.
But to add it to a day would probably make any of our mileage go over.
Yeah. It's possible that maybe on the stadium walk we'll go by, if it makes sense.
Oh, maybe, yeah.
We'll see.
Yeah.
But otherwise,
highly recommended, though.
Yeah, it was great. I would definitely go back again.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't know, what else is there? There's a wedding garden area, which it seems like it's currently off limits.
It looked like someone was actually working in there today.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure if the door was just closed because they were working or if it was like maybe they only open it for weddings. I'm not sure on that.
Yeah. And then go on. What were you going to say?
Well, this is kind of a tangent, a little bit.
We'll find out.
But we left a penguin there.
That's what I was going to say. Go on. I'm going to find the name of what the whole story.
Okay. So about the beginning of the week.
Yeah.
Sunday. Yeah.
Saturday. This particular week we walked Saturday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday.
That's right. So on Saturday, the first day of this week's walk, we were on our way home from the Queen's Botanic Garden. We had done Brooklyn first, went out to Queens, and then came home. And we were walking through Middle Village, and for some reason we just stopped on the sidewalk. I don't know if we had to stretch or something. and there was this little penguin
Mm-hmm.
on someone's, like, the half wall kind of thing that's in front of some people's houses.
Mm-hmm.
And Mike picked it up, and I was like, why are you picking, like, it was so weird that you picked up this penguin and, like, inspected it. I mean, it was fine, it was good, but, like, it was surprising because you're not often, like, picking up things from the sidewalk, especially looked like a toy. It looked like a child's toy.
It was more or less at the level of my hand.
Yeah.
And also, I wasn't sure if it was plastic or a rock. I was just curious.
Yeah, you were curious if it was plastic or a rock. Turned out it was a rock, and when you picked it up, it had, like, a little note on the bottom.
Yes. It said, if found, please take a photo and post in Facebook group Queens, New York Hope Rocks. Keep or rehide.
Yeah, and so we took it and we rehid it, and we hid it in the Botanic Garden in Queens.
That's right. And not only that, we took a picture of it with Jesse's ring.
Yeah.
We ended up putting it on the penguin as though it were a tiara.
Yeah, it's really cute.
Yeah. And so...
But we didn't hide, like, okay, when it's a little bit confusing that it says please hide, because I don't think anyone would find it if you like actually hid it, you know? Like,
Right.
you want it to be viewable.
Right.
So we didn't actually hide. We just, like, put it somewhere where someone else would find it easily.
That's correct.
Yeah.
And so, tomorrow or whenever, I'm going to post on the Facebook group and let people know the story of what we're doing and how we found it. And it was, I've already been on the page, and I actually saw there's like a history of this rock. There's the day that it was painted by somebody in the group. Then there's another message on the Facebook group saying that, oh, I hit all the rocks in Middle Village.
Yeah.
And that was like one day prior, so we found it pretty quickly.
Yeah.
And it was nice because Jessie, again, didn't know what this day held for us. And she brought it along. She saw. So it was kind of like a nice thing that she could contribute to the day. So when she found out, then it was, good.
Yeah, you had kind of forgotten about it, and I put it in my pocket this morning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, that was nice to know. I wish we had brought this up in the segment when we were talking about the engagement, but it's also, we're on Thursday, April 1st.
Oh, right. Yeah, it's
2021.
April Fool's Day.
Yes. So the proposal happened on April Fool's.
Yeah. Yeah, you can make of that if you wish.
That's right. So I think that's it for the Queen's Garden.
Yeah, well, let me consult my note real quick and just make sure we're not leaving anything really exciting out. Oh, we are.
Okay.
So the Queen's Botanic Garden is similar to, I think we've mentioned this about Flushing Meadows in the past, but it's built on a coal ash dump, which is the same coal ash dump that's referred to in The Great Gatsby.
Mm-hmm.
And coal ash has a lot of lime in it, which is a alkaline that creates alkaline soil.
Mm-hmm.
And most of the plants that thrive in the Northeast thrive in acidic soil.
Mm-hmm.
And so that presents an interesting challenge for the gardeners at the Botanic Garden, where they either have to try to slightly modify the soil with sulfur, which Colin said occasionally they'll do that, but more often they actually have to search for plants that thrive in an alkaline environment, or hope that the plants that they plant will adapt, or maybe coax them to adapt from acidic preference to alkaline preference.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So, yeah.
I mean, you can change plants so much.
Right.
So I'm sure that's a compelling experiment for them to run.
I would think so, yeah.
Yeah.